Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our school board meeting on February 2nd, 2022. Can I get a roll call, Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Cox?
Here?
Mr. Henry? Present. Mr. Llewellyn?
Here.
Mr. Mundy?
Here.
If I can get you all to stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. We'll start the evening off with introducing the board members here. All the way to my left, your right, we have Nathan Mundy. Next in line is Mr. Don Henry. Our superintendent, Dr. Andrea Townsend. My name is Joe Cox. This is John Llewellyn to my right, and Mr. Sloan, Ryan Sloan to the far right, your far left. Out in the audience tonight, we've got Melissa Tice, our assistant superintendent. Devin Berry, our human resources, Jack Haig, our business manager, and Ryan, of course, I've already introduced him, so we're good to go there. All right, number 5. It is recommended that the agenda for February 2nd, 2022 meeting be adopted as presented. I need a motion and a second, please.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mr. Mundy?
Yes.
It is recommended that the minutes of the regular meeting held on January 19th, 2022 be approved as submitted. I need a motion and a second for that, please.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mr. Mundy?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes. Do you have any no comments from the public relating to the agenda? We'll move right on to our student rep report. Mr. Llewellyn?
Thank you, sir. I've got 2 in the audience, it looks like. Sarah and McKenna are here. I don't know if one or both of you want to say anything, but I did have a couple of notes. I provided them of a couple of ideas they could share, but either one of you want to take the podium for us? Go ahead, McKenna.
Good evening. It's been a couple months, I think, since I've been in here. Got quarantine, got COVID, all kinds of stuff happened, but I'm glad to be back. In the past couple months, not a whole lot has been happening at the high school. I've been keeping notes, mental notes, just to talk about eventually when I'm not sick. It's been pretty peaceful. We've had a couple issues, just minor things like a fight and just the occasional drama or whatever, but nothing's been terrible. I don't have any crazy suggestions or complaints from anybody. They just wanted me to update you, just to tell you that everything's good.
Sarah, anything? Good. Okay. I want to share a couple quick things before I turn it back over to Joe. We'll save it for when we make comments at the end. We're good. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Moving right along, our communications update. Ms. Janine.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to remind everyone about the different ways you can find out what's happening in the schools. Our website, westcarrolltonschools.com, our Facebook, West Carrollton City Schools, and Twitter, WC City Schools. It's Groundhog's Day, and despite the rain, preschoolers this morning conducted a very scientific experiment to determine if they could see a shadow. They did it inside by the windows and did see a faint shadow, which means 6 more weeks of winter. If the preschoolers are correct, we want you to know that if a school delay or closure occurs, it will be announced on Facebook at West Carrollton City Schools, Twitter at WC City Schools. It will be on the top banner of our website at westcarrolltonschools.com. You will get notified by one call via text and or a phone call. Local news channels, we do contact them, but we don't have control of when they actually put it out there. But we contact local channels, including 2, 7, 22, and 45. And to be fair and provide a balanced reporting system, the afternoon class did not see a shadow, which means an early spring. So to what extent, if any, has the court's power of judicial review served to balance individual liberty and the common good? That is one of the questions high school students answered in the annual We the People competition. The competition was held via Zoom this year. Business Professionals of America students received awards from their regional competition, and I have those listed on the slide, and they will be advancing to state competition in several different categories, so we'll keep you updated on that. 8th grade student, Amarian, he wrote an original song for the Dayton Live Founding Fathers Cipher competition, and he was one of 8 students from area high schools and middle schools that were selected to perform in the Winter Garden prior to the performance of Hamilton at the Schuster Center last week. Pirates are spreading kindness. Art classes at Schnell are making Valentines to distribute at Walnut Creek. And pictured are Delaney and Chloe. They're best friends, and they told me it makes them feel good to help someone else. The blood drive at the high school resulted in 65 units received. And the kindergarten kindness ninjas are back, and they partnered with Blankets of Hope. They attached notes to blankets that will be distributed at St. Vincent's, and they had conversations regarding kindness and empathy. So we'd like to just throw out the challenge to everyone, help spread the kindness. And the Pirates are going to keep doing that, and we're going to keep you updated on what they are doing. Just a reminder to watch for updates from your child's school and from the superintendent so that you will know up-to-date information about what's happening in the schools. And I guess I could not let the evening go by. I speak for myself and several others in the room and community. Who Day. So I just wanted to remind everyone that, yeah, a big game may be coming up, but they played here, right here on the West Carrollton field. These were pictures, a few pictures taken from, I believe it was 2016, that summer. So good luck to them, and just a public invitation. You want to come back? I think we could arrange that. So that's all I had this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our points of pride with Mr. Krisick. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is Eric Krisick, the building principal at the middle school. Wanted to share with you a little bit about student leadership at the middle school and what that's looking like for us this school year. So to prep, we had reached out to some of our students, both formal and informal, in terms of like some of the leadership opportunities that are taking place at the middle school. We asked students how do they define a leader, and some of the answers included a leader has to be engaged, willing to help, have to really care and engage to know what the students want. It is not all about themselves, which was a particularly impressive response from a middle school student. Additionally, someone who can listen to other people, they combine other people's opinions, as well as a leader is always supporting someone and respecting them in every way possible, which was very insightful to say the least. So some examples at the middle school of formal leadership opportunities. Student council is certainly a driver of one of those formal opportunities. One of the student council president, Haley, had shared she likes having the opportunity to help everyone and wants everyone's opinion. Everyone there is very thoughtful and they have great ideas within student council. Primary functions of student council including the food drive, which we had over 5,800 food items donated just at the middle school alone. Planning an upcoming Spirit Week, actually around the Super Bowl, which kids are very excited about. I grew up in Kansas, so I was pretty devastated, but I'll get over it. My staff has made sure to make many Who Day comments. So, Teacher Appreciation Week is another student leadership opportunity for Student Council, as well as our PBIS store. Students have actually volunteered to make things for the store, and then kids can buy them with positive behavior points, which is a pretty neat thing, even so much so that we've started buying some of the supplies for kids to make the items to then be able to put them in the store. Another formal opportunity with the middle school is the National Junior Honor Society, and that's very service-based. A student mentioned, I like having a group to help the school. I kind of like helping out. I've tried to get girls' products for the restrooms, and my friends and I have talked about how to support homeless shelters and animal shelters. And specifically, they are interested in March in planning a school dance to benefit the Dayton Humane Society, as well as they've actually helped volunteer and support filling some pirate packs here recently. And then they also contribute to Teacher Appreciation Week, which is exciting for our teachers to see too. Some informal student leadership opportunities that we have started at the middle school. One is called Ruling Our Experiences, which is a girls group that's centered around one of our school counselors with help actually from the curriculum department. Girls learn how to communicate effectively, develop healthy relationships, and support other girls. They form a healthy body image, navigate social media, which is certainly very, very important for us, manage stress and pressure, stay safe and defend themselves, and then plan for college and their career and become leaders. Girls have mentioned, we're only in, I think, about week 3. We've started this in January. Girls have mentioned, I like how it's a support group. It's a good thing to support each other, as well as once I go in there, the stuff I'm going through completely goes away, and it turns into a very supportive space, which is really exciting to hear. And then finally, another example of an informal leadership example at the middle school is a student-created strolling orchestra. So a strolling orchestra, students actually got the idea from hearing the marching band come around in the wintertime around the holiday season and playing music for each other. And some 6th grade students in the orchestra said, we would like to do the same thing. So they had approached their teachers about creating a space for it. They actually have a color-coded schedule that they follow. They have 8 to 9 students participating, and they've said things like, we're all a bunch of different people, and it all connects when we're together making music. They are currently practicing at 3 days a week are mandatory, 2 days are voluntary, and they're preparing for their first performance, which they will be walking around our building to play music for staff, students, and office staff. So those are just some of the examples of student leadership at the middle school.
Mr. Kristick, could they come over and play for the ECC?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they would love to do it. They're such an excited and exuberant group that we could definitely arrange that. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Could I ask you something real quick? On the, and I hope I wrote it right, the Ruling Our Experience, you mentioned that just started in January.
Yes.
Is that all of the girls in the middle school? Is that just to select, do you know how many kids are participating in that?
Yeah. So it actually has involved some pretty intense training for one of our counselors. So right now it's a group of 10 girls, and it's a 20-week course, so to speak, or 20-week curriculum. They meet once a week, so it will take the span of this semester. She's actually started with 6th grade girls in our efforts of then growing it in future years so that she could have a group each semester, as well as expanding some of the trainings involved with it. So
right now it's roughly 10 kids and they're all 6th graders.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Dr. Townsend, you're up.
Okay, Mrs. Tice. So this is something that we tabled from January 5th. It's a motion and a second that the board approve the resolution as presented regarding policy 845001, which is our mask policy. I've asked the nurses to provide an update, which I've given you a written copy of. And Mrs. Tice, if you could go ahead and.
Sure. There are a couple of things that probably need to be corrected on the sheet that you have. So I'm going to walk you through what those are because it's a little bit confusing the way it's listed here. We have, I'm going to start with the number of cases we've had since the last meeting. So since the 5th of January when we met, that first week ending January 14th, we had 60 positive cases and 356 students who were affected by quarantine on top of those positive cases. The following week, we had increased to 108 positive cases, so an increase of nearly 50 students. And then quarantines remained pretty steady at about 350 students out of school due to quarantine requirements.
Can I ask a question right there real
Certainly.
quick? So, of the first 60 and the 356 quarantine, does the 108 reflect how many in the quarantine came down with COVID? Or are these new cases of COVID during that week?
So that's a good question. Those are the number of students who tested positive who were out that week. So you could have a student who was out Monday, over the course of 3 weeks, could have been reported 3 times.
Okay.
Okay? So it could be that they're out the first time. At this point, when we were doing this, we did not have reduced quarantine measures, which that's why I want to start with these numbers and then explain why you see some of the shifts. I didn't start at the top exactly so that we
Right.
can
I was
answer those
just
questions.
asking that question because it looks like if that first week we had 60 positive, 356 in quarantine, that some of those 108 are possibly some of those quarantines?
They definitely could have been, but I can't tell you
Right.
the numbers that came from that, yeah.
All right, thank you. Go
Because
ahead.
one of the things that happens is kids can test to come back early from quarantine, and then we were getting positive cases. For instance, we had a sports team, and in the mask to stay, test to play requirement, students who are exposed to a positive testing individual, an athlete, they have to test within 24 hours of being notified of that positive exposure. And then they have to test again within 5 days. So we had, on one sports team that I'm aware of, for instance, we had a student who tested positive. The next day, the entire team tested, and we had nobody testing positive. But then on the following Saturday, when we had to test on that between the 5 to 7 days, we had additional 3 students test positive. So that's just one example. I don't know every single
Right,
case.
I was just curious, just to verify that.
Okay. So then the week ending January 28th, and that's the week that we had a closure to that Thursday. We had the QPT day, and then we took the Thursday off and had the following day off. When we reported those, we had 61 positive cases and 251 quarantines. So it does look like a reduction. Could that be because we had fewer days, 3 days in the school week versus 5? Could be. I don't know, but those are just some things to consider in that information. So some of these changes, I mean, even though we see some improvement here in that third week with the reduction from 108 to 61 positive cases, why could that be? Maybe because we had a little more distance from the holiday season. Certainly is in line with what the experts say we would see. So we didn't expect to see a decline, and we did. We do believe that our masking is helping with that, and we were able to implement some reduced quarantine and isolation periods for students who are testing positive or exposed to those who test positive because we mask. So I'm going to take you back up to the top section here where it says changes to the WCSD quarantine guidelines. That first bullet is referring to students who have tested positive. So only positively infected individuals that first bullet applies to. And what that says there is that students can return now. It used to be a 10-day isolation period regardless. Now students can do an early return at just 5 days of isolation if they can test negative. After testing positive for 5 days, if they do not have symptoms or if they have a decline in symptoms. They have to be fever-free still, but let's say that they had, a headache for 4 days and a sore throat. The headache's gone, sore throat has lessened, they have no fever. They still have some symptoms, but they can come back on that 6th day. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. The next 2 bullets apply to students who are exposed out of school. So this may be a child who's living with a parent who has COVID, or they have a babysitter who tested positive with COVID. In those situations, students who are exposed have the option to test early and return as early as day 6. So on day 5, they could test. If they have a negative test result still, they're asymptomatic, They can come back to school on the 6th day. They have to wear a mask. Now, even if we were a district where masking was not required, they would have to wear a mask. That particular student in the situation that I've described would have to be masked in order to come back to school. Okay, so that's important about another point I'm going to make later. I'll circle back to that. So to come back early, to not be out for the 14 days or 10 days, it was 14 days that we were doing before, now it would be 10. To be able to come back early, mask and an improvement or asymptomatic. Students who are exposed and choose not to test, so if their parents say, no, I'm not taking them to get a test, I can't find a test, even though we do offer them in our district, they are required to stay out the full 10 days. Okay, so those second two bullets are related to out-of-school exposures. In school, we are able to allow students to stay, even when they're exposed, if it's an in-school exposure. We are allowed to let them stay if they are properly vaccinated or if they're masked. So our masking mandate is helping us not call parents and say, come pick up your child and they have to stay home. If they are wearing a mask and attempting to socially distance, or if they are vaccinated, they're allowed to continue to come to school. If they are symptomatic, then they're going to have to take a test in order to stay in school. As I mentioned, we're able to provide test kits for our students in kindergarten and above for early return. And we did choose to do that for kindergarten. If we have them available and we have enough available, we'd be willing to give those to preschool students. But our priority was kindergarten and above because we're monitored for attendance purposes at K and above. Preschool is not subject to the attendance laws that school age is. So then on behalf of the nurses, they wanted me to communicate that masking is still important because while we haven't seen the elimination of cases, we certainly believe that it would have been more pronounced in the uptick that we had than we did see. They say that vaccinated folks are still getting COVID. Students are still being sent to school sick and sent home with COVID symptoms. And we are not capable of socially distancing in all of our classroom settings or on school buses. The other thing is that just the sheer number of hours that it was taking for them to do the contact tracing is eliminated when we continue to mask. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I just have one other comment,
Yeah.
Melissa. We are not required to make the phone calls anymore either. So you might see a decline in those calls. It doesn't mean we don't have the cases.
Right.
I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know, I don't think we can say on ours, but how many kids are vaccinated on average, like per school? Is there like a percentage of kids that are vaxxed and not vaxxed? Or,
Well, at the ECC, it would be 0.
yeah, because
they're
they're too
not
young.
eligible.
Yeah,
Yeah. We don't have specific information because parents would need to report that to us.
I
It's
see.
not a mandated vaccine
yeah,
for school inclusion, and so if they don't tell us, we don't know.
yeah. I didn't know if there was like some sort of study that you guys made of saw that says 30%
Well,
maybe.
There's
or-
not that we've conducted, but we
Yeah.
know that by zip code, about 30% of the 3 zip codes that are included in our school district, about 30% of those who are age eligible to get a vaccine have received one.
Oh, okay.
But we don't have any other information than
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a good question.
Thank you. I may have one more question.
Okay.
If no one else is going to ask. Because of these new guidelines, do you think the cases are going to significantly drop, especially if they don't have to stay out for 10 days? They can only stay out for 5 or whatever. Like, wouldn't that drop the numbers pretty good? Because now they're not staying for 10 days, they're only staying for 5, which would have the time, right?
When
Am
you
I
say
doing that math right?
when you say dropping the numbers
Of like the positive cases? So like there's 61.
Quarantines.
Yeah, in the quarantines. Like, I wonder, because if there's 61 positive cases, let's say 30 of them are on day 9. Well, now, after day 5, they can come back if they're not showing symptoms or such. So that would drop the numbers by a lot, right?
So I I think that speaks to what we were talking about because of the masking. Because our kids have masks, and this came up in our superintendent's meeting as well, the districts who have maintained masking,
Yeah.
we're able to reduce our quarantines this way, and hopefully we'll start seeing a decline, which we did last week, and, you know, we don't know if it's related to, I just checked the numbers, they're looking good.
Are they? Okay.
But if we take mask away, we have to put that back up to 14 days.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Nobody else? Okay, well, thank you.
All right.
So we are just adopting,
No.
Nope.
Nope.
So
It's a
here-
motion to do away with the
Here-
mask policy.
Here's my take on this. I don't know, everybody don't, just us have this?
Just you have it.
If I look at these bullet points at the bottom, we'll have masks the rest of the school year, because most of these things are, I believe, that's my opinion, most of these things are gonna be true in April or May as well. I could read these to you, but I think that, just looking at the 6 or 7 bullet points at the bottom, most of those things are gonna be true. They've been true for 2 years. And I would at least, I don't think this is gonna go the way I want it to, but I would at least, put forth the motion that we at least vote on this. And if the vote is not, if we either don't get to vote on it because I don't get a second, or the vote is 2-2, or I'm the only yes vote on this, I would then ask if we could vote to table it again for a future meeting, if it doesn't pass. But I'm not sure if I can even request that, but that's my thinking, because I'm not real sure how this is gonna go. But I do believe the time is, we have to do, there's plenty of districts doing this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if a district had a surge for a period of time, it passed. You know, the surge went down and they were able to cope with it. I do, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Dr. Townsend alluded to this a minute ago, but again, correct me here if this is wrong, the Ohio Department of Health just did take away the requirement to contact trace. Is that accurate to say it that way, or?
It's not really taken away, we just don't have to report it every day, so we can do a cumulative report on Fridays. We're not required to let families know anymore. However, most of the districts agree to let families know if there's been cases in the school, so,
So those updates we get, the text and the, mostly text, and phone calls that we get with how many cases are in a building, that would continue,
if we chose to continue it, we could.
but that requirement's gone as well? Is that what you're, okay, I didn't know that, I didn't, okay. I guess, to me, this is, I'm not saying we shouldn't have masks, I'm saying they should be optional. I'm saying parents should have the choice to send their kids here with a mask or not. I certainly understand there's differing opinions about this, but I appreciate it even being on the agenda, and I appreciate our conversations. I certainly appreciate the nurses and their statistics and their opinions about this, but, and I haven't asked for medical people to come in here, but I certainly could, and they would share things with you that are contrary to this. I'm not gonna do that, but I do appreciate that we're having the dialogue, and I would at least, put forth the motion that we at least have a vote on item 11.
What's on the agenda for vote? So, a motion and a second that the board approve the resolution as presented regarding policy 845001. Just one little more piece of information. In the SOUPS meeting, we were told that we're about 3 weeks behind Cleveland, so we just hit our peak. So we should see a decline.
I have a question.
Yes.
I forgot my question.
I'll ask my question while you remember yours. So if we take away the masks and kids are exposed,
It's 14 days.
it's 14 days. And in past experiences, those 14-day kids pretty much lose 14 days of education.
Or more. But yeah,
Yeah.
average, yep.
So those seniors who are close to not graduating
Right.
would probably not make it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
My question. If we do vote to take away the masks or make it optional, we can, if things go bad, we can put them back up, right?
I mean, we can change our policy
Like-
whenever we want to.
Yeah, so like we can reverse our decision if need be, right?
I actually have the ability, because of state law, to put the mask in place
Oh,
at
okay.
any time because it is a pandemic. It's not an endemic.
I see. So like if
So-
things get bad quick, we can make that
I
choice.
mean, if things get, regardless, we just reduced our quarantines to 5 days.
Yeah,
We would have to bump all of that back up,
yeah,
and kids have missed a lot of school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as much as, you know, our opinions about the mask, and I'll say the same thing to you that I've said to others, regardless of what our personal opinions or beliefs or science says, depending upon what side you look at,
Yeah.
it enables me to keep my kids in school.
yeah,
And that is the most important thing to me. And to be able to reduce the quarantines, and this is pretty much what everybody's been doing in Montgomery, like recently. So when we had our meeting on Monday, I don't want to see the kids keep missing school. We're in the second semester, almost done with the third quarter, halfway, so.
yeah. Well, what Joe said was compelling. I was just clarifying if
No,
that was an
it's
option.
okay.
So if I remember correctly, when we went into online,
That's the other thing, the other districts are having to go remote.
yeah, when we went online, out of our student body was over 900 students that didn't report. There was at one
Yeah.
point that we were over, almost a third of our student body did not report for
That's-
online
That's
classes.
correct.
So, I mean, I would just say, think about what's gonna happen if we have to go into a quick online, and those seniors who are already on the borderline because they've already been through this for 2 years. Again, I personally do not like the mask, but if it's gonna keep our kids in school, I think that would be a good thing.
Well, it's on the table, so. Is there a motion
I
on
was gonna
this?
say, is there a motion and a second?
I made the motion, but there has to be a second for us to vote on it. So if there's no second, we won't be voting.
Would it be okay to table this for a month?
Yeah, can we table it? I'd much rather do that.
Mr. Henry? Let's table it for a month.
Okay. Oops, next one, Mr. Barry.
Same. Mr. Berry?
Good evening. The superintendent recommends that the West Carrollton Board of Education grant administrative contract to Jordan Fishback for the period of time indicated.
I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Swain?
Mr. Llewellyn?
Yes.
Mr. Mundy?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Item 13, sir.
Just to speak on that one, I'm really glad that we had an opportunity. She's interning right now, and we had an opportunity to hire her for next year. It is an extremely difficult position to fill, very similar to a speech and language pathologist. So we're pretty excited about adding her to the administrative team. Because if we didn't get her now, we probably wouldn't be able to get her later. So, item 13, superintendent recommends that the board approve the following personnel items. Item 13A, accept the resignation of the listed individual for retirement purposes. Actually, there are two. Amend the salary of the listed individual due to additional training effective the beginning of the third quarter for the 2021-2022 school year. And item 13C, grant a leave of absence to the listed individuals in accordance with the provisions of the Family Medical Leave Act. 13D, amend the following, or the listed paid leave of absence. And item 13E, grant an unpaid leave of absence to the listed individual in accordance with the provisions of the Family Medical Leave Act.
I need a motion and a second, please.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Mundy,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Anything to add to that, sir?
I wanted to congratulate the two individuals that are retiring, which would be Carol Carrier and Roz Supranat. Quite sure Roz has spoken here multiple times, and Carol Carrier, this is the only district that she has ever worked in. She's pretty sad, but she feels like it's time, to go and move on with the next step of her life, and I'm pretty sure that Roz is the same way, so wanted to congratulate both of them on their pending retirement.
And how long has Miss Bush been here?
She'll still be here.
Okay.
She's yeah, I think it's 32, 33.
All right. Item number 14.
The superintendent recommends that the board approve the following personnel items. Item 14A, approve the listed individual as a volunteer for the 2021-2022 school year. Item 14B, grant a supplemental pupil activity contract to the listed individuals for the 2021-2022 school year.
I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second. Nope. Second.
Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Mundy,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Abstain?
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn.
Yes.
I abstain because her stepdad works for me. All right, item number 15.
Superintendent recommends that the board approve the following personnel items. Item 15A, accept the ratification of employment of the listed individual pending approval by the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation and Consensual Drug Screening as required by Ohio Revised Code 3319.291 and the policies of the West Carrollton City School District. B, conditionally employ the listed individuals pending approval by the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation and Consensual Drug Screening as required by Ohio Revised Code 3319.291 and the policies of the West Carrollton City School District. Item C, grant a leave of absence to the listed individual in accordance with the provisions of the Family Medical Leave Act.
Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Mundy,
Yes.
I'd like to recommend that the board enter into a contract with the Montgomery County Educational Service Center regarding the PRISM Virtual Reality Pilot Program as presented.
Need a motion and a second, please.
Motion.
Second.
Anything to add?
Yeah, just so really quick, this is related to a grant using the Oculus headsets where our children can participate in algebra and geometry courses, and hopefully we'll be adding physical science and physics. Okay. So it's a great opportunity. All of the devices are paid for. It's costing us $10 a student for the license. So we're excited to be able to offer this to our kids, and we're receiving 60 headsets.
That was my question I was gonna ask you. How many we get?
Mr. Sloan?
Is this, I'm sorry, is this just, I'm not seeing it in here. Will this primarily be used in one building, or is this gonna be spread out through the district?
At the
Just
high
the high
school
school?
to start, yeah.
Okay.
And we've talked about, they're not really expensive items, so they're about $300 a piece. And we've been trying them out with different math programs as central office, and I think the kids are really gonna like them.
It's just, that'd be horrible for you. You have to try to figure those things out, right?
That one's not too bad. I'm not a gamer, but they're
Right.
actually pretty neat.
Yeah, they are.
And, it would be nice if, if this program goes well, to be able to put it into our new STEM program. So,
60. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Mundy,
Yes.
Mr. Cox.
Yes. Item number 17, Mr. Hague.
Yes, thank you. The superintendent recommends that the board enter into a 3-year agreement with the Miami Valley Educational Computer Association, MAVECA, to provide voice over internet phones, VoIP, including equipment, licensing, installation, and cabling to all the West Carrollton School District buildings as presented. The WCSD agrees to pay a one-time installation fee of $118,998.80 and a yearly service fee of $60,576.
Need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
Mr. Mundy,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question? Sure. So is this going to be the 2 new buildings and the existing buildings?
Yes, yeah.
And then once the existing buildings move,
We'll take the
Take the pieces back.
phones with us.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
like-
they'll move.
yeah.
Yeah, because this is on a lease, so they provide any replacement phones to us, any equipment, anything that goes along with it.
will they
So-
they'll do the movement and stuff also?
Yes.
Installation,
Yep,
okay.
and the reprogramming of everything. So
Great.
they'll handle all that.
That's nice.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Item number 18, Dr. Townsend.
I'd like to recommend that the board approve the proposed West Carrollton High School Pirate Robotics Team student trip to the Greater Pittsburgh Regional First Robotics Competition from March 16th, 2022 to March 19th, 2022 in Pennsylvania as presented. Students are learning engineering and teamwork skills as they work together to build a robot that they will compete in this year's challenge. Students will present to judges, develop strategies for the competition, and work with other teams and alliances as they compete.
Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Mundy,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
We're hoping it won't be canceled.
Item number 19, Dr. Townsend.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the board adopt the resolution confirming that West Carrollton School District will conduct athletics in accordance with the Constitution, bylaws, regulations, interpretations, and decisions of the Ohio High School Athletic Association as presented. This resolution shall remain in effect for the 2022-2023 school year.
Need a motion and a second, please.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Sloan?
Mr. Mundy,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Yes.
All right, we will move on to committee reports.
I have one.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. This morning, we went to the district leadership meeting. Wow, what an experience, right? It's amazing to see so many amazing people all in one place and doing some really amazing things. I'm going to make it quick because I know we want to get out of here. I'll just mention a few things. So much data that we have, and I just can't wait to see what we do with it and to really drive it in. And as someone that just graduated not too long ago, I have such high hopes for these kids, and I cannot wait for the things that they're going to learn. I'm impressed. Thank you.
Henry, anything? Committee?
I've attended only my initial meeting of the Miami Valley Career Technical Center. Impressive. There's 17 members, if you did not know that. There are multiples for certain organizations, like the ESC, I believe, has 3 of the 17. But just basically, each district that participates has one representative. The many of the same issues that impact West Carrollton school district also affect the CTC, like the COVID requirements that we've been talking about tonight. Their construction project is moving ahead quite well. And this Sunday, there's an open house from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's in what they call it's not the rib, what do they call it? What's the nickname?
I don't know.
Anybody? Spine? Anyhow, there's one building in the new structure that everything feeds off of. So it's like a spine, if you will. And the open house will be conducted in that facility Sunday afternoon. And I will be there. Tom Wolf, who I replaced on that committee, will be there as well. He wants to see what has been created in the time that he served on that board. Very impressive. I did enjoy meeting the 17 members, the other 16, and the superintendent. They're all very positive. They represent education and industry and the communities in general. It's all about students and giving them the opportunity to excel in programs that they're interested in. They applied for the program or programs that they may have been interested in, and they may have been selected for that specialty that they wanted. However, there is a limitation, a physical limitation, as to the number of students that attend the Career Technical Center. So one of our sophomores might apply to attend the CTC under Program A and not be selected because of the limited number of openings for the junior and senior class years. That's not a new issue. I believe the facility has been open for 25 years now. And there's always certain programs that fill up rapidly. One of them is, help me out, folks, the culinary arts. Whatever that number is, bang, it's filled. And for the students that were not selected, they cannot apply the next year because one of their 2 final years in the K-12 system has elapsed. It's a tough one. If you don't know, the competition to get into a specific program can be very difficult for the students to not be selected when they really wanted to, because they're thinking, this is where I want to work. This is what I want to do. This is my career, my future. And so we have to go backwards in time, and that would be presenting these opportunities to our elementary students to get them thinking about their future. When they get into our middle school grades, we need to reemphasize what those programs would require as far as coursework and grades achieved by the student to be able to even apply for that opportunity. So enough. Don't call me Tom Wolf. I've enjoyed my first 30 days with the Career Technical Center. Thank you.
Johnny, anything? Okay. On to comments from our superintendent.
Thank you. Just to piggyback on Mr. Henry, I spoke recently with the superintendent at the CTC, and some of our new programs, which we will share with you at the next meeting, actually come from the CTC. So one is Project Lead the Way, and Dr. Weldy is gracious enough to help support that, and more will be coming about that. And some of the other programs that we'll be starting is a careers in the middle school. So it kind of talks about the trades, and the kids have the opportunity to focus on future jobs. And I'd like to congratulate the We the People kiddos and the BPA students. And then just a heads up for tomorrow, we are closed. The kids are here. A message should be going out shortly, but all the local districts are closing due to the ice and the snow. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. And Mr. Kesters, you can put your phone away. They probably already got their message.
I haven't because he just wanted to do something tonight.
Well, yeah. So that's all I have tonight.
Mr. Sloan.
Nothing for this evening, other than we can maybe talk school finance in 2 weeks and talk about the Bengals' first ever Super Bowl victory.
Yes, sir. And it's day, not dat.
I know, I've just been harassing because I'm from Cleveland.
All right, we have nobody from the West Carrollton Education Association or classified. Central office. Mr. Barry, anything? No. Mr. Haig? Ms. Tice? No? Curriculum? No? Okay, we'll move on pretty quickly then. General comments from the public. We have a guest tonight.
Hello again, Mike Kesters, 2298 Forestine Court, high schooler. I'm here to talk about extracurricular busing. There was an issue again this past weekend where something happened and extracurricular busing wasn't handled for whatever reason with the district. I'm not looking for specifics into why that stuff. Honestly, I accept the fact that mistakes happen, okay? My concern is this is the third time I'm aware of an extracurricular busing issue with just my kid. I don't know how many others have happened to other kids. And while I accept mistakes, I appreciate mistakes happen, I can't help but believe there is a bigger problem here that's not being addressed. I believe there should, you know when you're going to need one. You can put your requests in for busing ahead of time. With respect to athletics, you have an athletics calendar. The athletic department can ensure a bus has been scheduled. There's audit trails to make sure stuff happened. These are just different methods to validate your processes are being followed or where improvements can be made in the process. Those checks and balances I can't believe are in place if I know of 3 instances with just my kid this year. So I'm asking you before a tragic thing happens to address these holes in the process, in the audit trail beforehand. You guys talk about student safety being the #1 priority. These students this past weekend drove themselves to get to their last competition. That's not supposed to happen. That's against policy. I don't blame the kids for wanting to participate in their last event. I blame the process that failed them. And all I'm asking for is for checks and balances and audits to be done in these processes so that these things can be addressed in a proactive way and not hold problems around because they're just not set up for accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dobson, you're next. Just state your name and address real quick for us.
My name's Rick Dobson, 3131 West Alex Bell Road. I'm here as a citizen. I want to make sure there's a difference between any other position I might have. I didn't plan on any questions or anything, but I heard the COVID policy from the school. And I don't know if it's a question, but I'd like to get a clarification of something I want to make sure I understood clearly. Can I ask her to, just so I understand what that particular meeting was? It was about the COVID, if a student tests positive for COVID, but has had the vaccine question, I just want to know what that policy was again.
So I'll answer it. All of this is on our website too, by the way. If their vaccine is current, Mrs. Tice, you can, so that means that it's in the last 6 months and or they've had the booster in the last 6 months, they can come to school. Everybody has to wear a mask. If they're not vaccinated and they test positive, they have to stay home for 5 days, and then they can come back with the test, reduced symptoms, no fever, mask for 5 days. We're following Ohio Department of Health's guidelines is where they're coming from.
So the person who's vaccinated has COVID and tested positive for COVID, but they're vaccinated.
Five
They
days.
still have to stay out 5 days. All right, that was I didn't understand. I know it's a mess.
School rules are a little different.
Too confusing.
It's
We
very,
didn't make them up.
Yeah.
We're just
I
trying to
know.
follow them.
I know the whole thing's a little wacky, but I have, my question, my concern with that is, if you've been exposed because you have been vaccinated, and you've been exposed and you're not vaccinated, you can come to school because you were vaccinated. Yep, but still, you can spread the disease. I don't think that's right.
You'll have to contact Ohio Department of Health.
Well, I think maybe the school board ought to contact them. And maybe lots of people ought to contact. It's just a little weird that just because I had a vaccinated, or I got vaccinated, not me, somebody else got vaccinated, they get it. No, exposed to it. But I get exposed to it, and I'm not vaccinated. I gotta go home, be a bad boy, and get put in timeout. But the person who had the vaccinated, or got vaccinated, got exposed to it, can still spread it. They're not being punished. They don't have to go home and have a timeout. I have a hard time with that. So I know you guys can't do anything about that. But we as people maybe ought to be yelling loud, really loud, and say, let's wake up, America. But anyway, sorry, I don't mean to.
Well, don't be.
Don't be.
But thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Dobson.
Thanks, Mr. Thompson. All right, on to our board members' comments. Mr. Llewellyn, you want to go first?
All right, so a couple of things I wanted to say about a couple of announcements I just wanted to make. I don't know exactly when auditions are, but for those who aren't aware, there's a musical planned for April 22nd through the 24th.
Monday and Tuesday trial.
And the show they're going to do is Charlie Brown. And are you telling me Monday and Tuesday next week? Okay. So I know my son has an audition next week. I didn't know what day it was, but it's got to be one of those 2 days. But definitely, Mr. Coleman is the man here for the couple decades that's been in charge of the musical. So if you have any questions about it, he's the guy to see. But definitely looking forward to that show. It should be fun. Should be kid-friendly, family-friendly. That's what I know they're not always like that, but I sure wish most of the time that our musicals were endearing to families, because we're going to get better attendance. Music program's going to make more money because more people are going to come, and it's just a good program, and Charlie Brown will be a fun show. So just wanted to plug that since the time is near for you to audition if you're a student out there and you want to be in Charlie Brown. Also on the roundtable that we have with the collaboration with Valley View, Centerville, and Northmont, we still have a lot of things that are unclear as far as topics, but we have went ahead and Dr. Townsend, you'll be learning about this soon because we certainly want to invite the superintendents to this again. We've plugged at least a early 10th, 12th, something like that in April as far as a date that we'll be inviting attendees to be part of that, but we have not still narrowed down topics for our meeting with legislators, but we have at least tried to pinpoint a date that we hope works to get the most people there. We also are considering, Centerville is actually, I think Northmont and Centerville have both offered auditorium space to perhaps have part of this in person, and then also allow for a Zoom or Teams or some program that we could offer folks to be there virtually that can't be there in person. So those are some details that we're working out. Looking forward to what that's going to look like, and of course McKenna and Sarah and Shabri are part of that as our student reps. One other thing I would mention too is that OSBA conference, which is 9 months away still, 10 months away in November, we will be, the task force or the group of us with this roundtable are going to be putting together a presentation about student board reps as far as to share with districts who don't currently have them. So we'll be doing a presentation. I'd be really surprised if OSBA doesn't accept our presentation, but I guess I shouldn't assume it. But we'll be at least making a presentation to OSBA to have a session, maybe two, but definitely one session about the topic of student board reps in November. So that'll be cool if we get to do it. And the last thing I would just share real quick, I know the WCA was here the last meeting and shared some concerns. Certainly, whenever they come and speak to us, I'm certainly listening to them. Those are our teachers. Those are our well-educated professionals in the district, and greatly appreciated. And I know that, as with anybody's job, there's certainly going to be times where you don't feel appreciated or you don't necessarily deserve the criticism that you get, and I certainly understand that. I think we can all understand that, at least. But I would just share that as much as I may or may not like something that somebody says to me, I will never agree to basically silencing somebody for their opinion. So take that for what it sounds like, I suppose, but I certainly understand anybody really, any staff member, any student, any member of the community who wants to come and share their views with us, whether I think they're pro or con or agree or don't agree with them. I'm never going to sit here and tell you can't do that. The National School Board Association kind of tried that, and this board kind of rejected it. So at least for my take, that's how I'd feel about this too. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mundy.
Hi. I'll be quick. I have a few notes that I've been taking. I just wanted to start out with congratulating We the People in BPA on all the awards and all the hard work. It's a lot of work to do stuff like that, so congratulate them on that. Two is the middle school. I love seeing these kids get involved. I love seeing clubs to grow and to really expand. Kid involvement and things like that is just fantastic to see, because they take those outside of school and then they'll be involved in communities and helps everybody. And then, of course, I know it's going to get real snowy, real icy. Be sure to be safe. It's going to get dangerous out there for a few days, and who knows what happens in the next few weeks or whatever, but just to be sure to be safe. I want to thank you two for talking, Mike and Rick, for coming up here and talking. And then I'm a Steelers fan, but I guess who day. I guess I'll go for the Bengals in the Super Bowl here, even though I'm a diehard Steelers fan. I let it happen, and then
You're fired.
and then last but not least, I'm not going to explain it, but I do have a quote, like always. Life is like a balloon. If you never let go, you'll never know how far you can rise. Just wanted to end it with that. Thank you guys so much.
Mr. Henry.
That's a hard act to follow. Taking sports to a different level. I've really enjoyed our high school athletes and their activities this winter season. There have been some games, basketball in particular, that really show our students can and do excel, and they represent our community well, be it a home game or an away game. Very proud of them. The middle school has had some real high expectations that they've met this season, this winter sports season. And so many things, like a first-time coach taking over a program that has had losing seasons year after year after year, and they get a win, and they celebrate it en masse. It's great. And that's why the students play. They represent their fellow students, whether they're athletes or not. It's good to see them shine and perform at something that they enjoy doing, and they do it well. And lastly, I do want to comment on one of the teachers that will be retiring at the end of this school year. I've known Carol for a long time. She's taught in several of our elementary buildings, and she has developed some programs that are just logical, very involved for so many students. And what I'm talking about is those silly metal cab tops from cans of beverages or other things too, pop tops. And that was invented by a gentleman who lived in Kettering, Ohio, had his own company, and it expanded globally to be not just beverages for consumption, but other products as well. And if you don't think that's a day-to-day thing that can happen, my dog likes some products and not others. She seems to like the one that I have to use a can opener rather than a pop top, which, I want to please her. I want to provide her a good nourishment for her meal. But it's an everyday thing that it's easier to open that pop-top can than it is to get out the opener, whether it's electric or manual, and go through that process too. So my point is, think about the possibilities. Our students come up with ideas. They may ask an adult that's related somehow with the school district how they might develop that idea. What do they need to know? Is it a business sense? Is it an engineering sense? It's here. We can help them. We have to listen, and we have to react positively to let them proceed. Thank you.
They're made in Huber Heights.
Mhm.
Pop-Tops were made in Huber Heights.
But they were originated in Kettering.
And also right there on 741.
They're only made in Ohio.
Yep. So just another quick little fact, the Pop Tops and Shatterproof bottles, the molds for those after they were designed were made by my dad and my grandfather. And that building was right across from Beyond's entrance here on Alex Bell. There's a little one-story building right there. My dad made those molds in that little building. Yep, kind of crazy. All right, best of luck to our retirees, to the robotics team. You guys have a lot to do. Heading to Pittsburgh. Congrats to We the People. And we have, just for an information, I am coaching a small high school boys basketball team down at Kingdom. They're only 500 right now, but they are having a lot of fun. We have got some talented young men who, a couple of them have never played ball for a school anywhere whatsoever. The competition is heavy. We've got some folks from Lakota, Oakwood, Hamilton, Middletown, and then our team. Our team is not very tall, but they can sure slam a basketball. And last Sunday was exciting to watch. There was a lot of alley-oops and a lot of tomahawk slams. So that's exciting for our basketball team other than our high school teams. And it was a lot of fun. Last note, please be careful, like Nate was saying. The weather is not here yet. Next hour or so, we are going to start seeing that change over to slush and ice. And they're expecting an inch of ice or so throughout the morning. The big kick is the secondary storm that comes in between Thursday night and Friday morning could dump up to 10 inches of snow. So
I will let everybody know on Friday, tomorrow afternoon.
So please be
Thank
safe,
you.
have a great day off, and do not overdo it. For those of you who are elderly or physically incapable, please let somebody help you with that. The snow's going to be heavy, and we don't want to lose anybody. Have a great night, and I will entertain a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
Have a great night.